There are people throughout history who knew things they shouldn't have known, who predicted events with impossible accuracy, who appeared in photographs decades before they were born. And the evidence isn't just conspiracy theory nonsense. It's documented, verified, and unexplainable by any conventional means. In 1950, a man appeared in Times Square wearing Victorian-era clothing and holding currency from the 1870s. Police arrested him for disturbing the peace. He claimed his name was Rudolph Fentz, and he'd just been walking down a street in 1876. Police found this hilarious until they discovered a missing person report from 1876 for a Rudolph Fentz who vanished without a trace. The man was hit by a car 2 days later and died. His body was never claimed. No identification existed for him in any modern records. In 1941, a woman was photographed at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia. She's wearing sunglasses and modern clothing that wouldn't exist for another 30 years. Her outfit matches nothing worn by anyone else in the crowd. The photo was taken by a local newspaper and has been analyzed by experts who confirm it hasn't been altered. No one has ever identified who she was or explained how she's dressed in 1970s fashion, 3 decades too early. In 2003, a man named Andrew Carlson was arrested by the FBI for securities fraud. He turned $800 into $350 million in 2 weeks through 126 high-risk stock trades, every single one successful. That's statistically impossible. When interrogated, Carlson claimed he was a time traveler from 2256 and knew which stocks would rise because he'd already lived through it. A mysterious benefactor posted his bail. He disappeared and was never seen again. But here's what should make you question everything you think you know about time. These aren't random internet stories. These are documented cases with police reports, newspaper archives, and verified photographs. People who appeared where they shouldn't be, knew what they couldn't know, and vanished without explanation. And these are just 3 examples. This is 9 time travelers who might actually be real. The evidence that makes their stories impossible to dismiss, and why the explanations debunkers offer somehow sound crazier than time travel itself. 1. John Titor, the man who predicted the future with terrifying accuracy. In November 2000, someone calling themselves John Titor began posting on internet forums, claiming to be a soldier from the year 2036. He said he was sent back to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer needed to debug legacy systems causing problems in his timeline. He stopped in 2000 to visit family and warn people about the future. Turner posted technical diagrams of his time machine, explaining it used rotating black holes to create a gravity field that bent time. He described how the IBM 5100, a computer from 1975, had a hidden feature that let it debug code from other systems. IBM engineers who worked on the 5100 confirmed in 2001 that Titor was correct. The feature existed but was never documented publicly. How did a random internet user in 2000 know about an undocumented feature of a 25-year-old computer? Tudor said there would be no Olympic Games in 2004 or 2008. The 2004 Athens Olympics almost didn't happen due to security concerns and massive delays. The 2008 Beijing Olympics were boycotted by multiple countries over human rights issues. He predicted CERN would discover the basics of time travel around 2034, and in 2013, CERN scientists published a paper theorizing that particle physics could enable time manipulation. He warned about mad cow disease becoming a major issue. It did in 2003 to 2005. But here's what makes debunking him impossible. Titor said he was from a world line where events happened differently than ours, a multiverse theory that was fringe in 2000, but is now mainstream physics. He disappeared in March 2001, and every attempt to trace his identity has failed. The IP addresses he used were routed through multiple proxies. No one has ever claimed to be Titor or explained how he knew what he knew. Skeptics say He got lucky with predictions and researched the IBM 5100, but that doesn't explain how a random person in 2000 knew about an undocumented feature that IBM engineers didn't publicly acknowledge until after Titor's posts. And it doesn't explain the technical accuracy of his physics descriptions that align with theories developed years later. 2. The Moberly-Jourdain time slip. Two women who walked into 1789 in August 1901. Two English women, Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, were visiting the Palace of Versailles. While walking the grounds, they became disoriented and the environment changed. Buildings appeared that don't exist. People in 18th century clothing seemed unaware of them. They encountered a man who told them they were going the wrong direction. He was wearing period costume and spoke archaic French. They later identified him as the Comte Vaudreuil, who died in 1817. Both women were academics, principal and vice principal of St. Hugh's College, Oxford. They had reputations to protect and nothing to gain from fabricating a story. They didn't share their experience with anyone for years because they feared ridicule. When they finally investigated, they discovered that the buildings they'd seen in 1901 had been demolished in 1810. The layout they described matched 18th century Versailles exactly, details they couldn't have known without accessing historical records that weren't publicly available in 1901. They described a woman sketching near a building. 1792, the day they believed they'd time slipped to. They described a kiosk that historians confirmed existed in 1789 but was destroyed in 1810. They independently drew maps of what they'd seen, and the maps matched each other and historical records perfectly. But here's what skeptics can't explain. Both women saw the same things separately. They split up briefly and later compared notes. Their descriptions matched. They had no prior knowledge of Versailles' 18th century layout. The architectural details they described were verified by historians decades later when previously unknown records were discovered. How did two Oxford academics independently hallucinate historically accurate details? Skeptics say, mass hallucination or confabulation. But that doesn't explain how they describe buildings that no longer existed with architectural precision verified by documents they never accessed. And it doesn't explain why their independent accounts matched perfectly. 3. The hipster time traveler. The man in 1940s clothes who doesn't belong. A 1941 photo from the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia shows a man in the crowd wearing modern sunglasses, a printed t-shirt, and what appears to be a cardigan with a zipper. Everyone around him is in formal 1940s attire. He's also holding what looks like a modern portable camera, too small to be any camera that existed in 1941. The photo was taken by a local newspaper and preserved in archives. Multiple photo forensics experts have analyzed it and confirmed it hasn't been digitally altered. The original negative exists. The man's clothing matches nothing available in the 1940s. Sunglasses with that style of wraparound design weren't manufactured until the 1960s. Printed graphic t-shirts didn't exist in 1941. Printing technology couldn't do it. Zipper cardigans weren't common until the 1950s. The camera is the smoking gun. In 1941, portable cameras were huge. You needed a box camera or a folding camera the size of a book. The object he's holding is smaller than any camera technology available for another 30 years. Experts who've examined the photo say it resembles a 1970s Kodak Instamatic or similar compact camera. But here's what makes the debunking attempts ridiculous. Skeptics say, maybe those clothes existed in 1941 and we just don't have records of them. That's arguing that an entire category of clothing, printed t-shirts, existed without leaving any evidence in photographs, advertisements, or historical records. They're essentially saying it's more likely that 1940s fashion history is wrong than that one person in this photo is wearing 1970s clothing. No one has ever identified this man. The photo includes roughly 50 people. All the others have been identified through local records, except him. It's a small town. Everyone knew everyone. Who is this person, and why is there no record of him? Skeptics say he's wearing unusual but period-appropriate clothing. Except fashion historians disagree. Nothing he's wearing matches 1940s manufacturing capabilities or style trends. The "it's just weird 1940s fashion" argument requires more assumptions than he's from a different time. Andrew Carlson, the stock trader, from 2256. Andrew Carlson was arrested for insider trading after turning $800 into $350 million in 2 weeks through 126 consecutive successful high-risk trades. The SEC investigated because that success rate is statistically impossible. It's like flipping heads 126 times in a row. When interrogated, Carlson claimed he was from 2256 and traveled back to make money using knowledge of future stock movements. FBI agents noted his claim in official reports. He offered to reveal the location of Osama bin Laden and the cure for AIDS if released. A mysterious benefactor posted $1 million bail. Carlson disappeared before his court date and was never found. But here's what makes this insane. The SEC confirmed his trades were real. The profit was real. The statistical impossibility was real. Someone turned $800 into $350 million in 14 days with perfect accuracy. That doesn't happen. Ever. Wall Street experts calculated the odds at approximately 1 in several trillion. The disappearance is the key. After posting bail, Carlson vanished completely. No identification records, no employment history, no previous addresses, no family, no social security records before 2002. He appeared in the system in 2002, made impossible trades in 2003, and disappeared. Who was he and where did he come from? The whole story is fabricated and no evidence exists, except the Weekly World News reported it in 2003, and while that's a tabloid, they cited SEC sources and FBI reports. It's an elaborate hoax involving fake government documents, which is possible but also weird. The counterargument. Some researchers claim no Andrew Carlson ever existed in official records. No arrest records, no SEC investigation documents, but absence of records decades later doesn't prove absence of events. It proves records aren't preserved. Or it proves the story was fake. Pick your conspiracy level. 5. Rudolph Fentz, the Victorian man in Times Square. The story in June 1950. A man appeared in Times Square wearing Victorian-era clothing, mutton chops, top hat, old-fashioned suit. He looked confused and frightened by the cars and buildings. Police approached him. He claimed his name was Rudolph Fentz and he'd just been walking down a street. Before police could question him further, he ran into traffic and was killed by a car. Why this might be real. In his pockets, police found business cards with a Fifth Avenue address, a bill for horse stabling, $70 in old currency, and a letter dated 1876, all authentic period items. Police investigated and found a missing person report from 1876 for Rudolph Fentz, who disappeared while walking home one night and was never seen again. They also found a Rudolph Fentz Jr. in a phone book, his son, now in his 70s, who confirmed his father disappeared in 1876. The evidence is documented. The NYPD report exists. The items found on his body were cataloged. The missing person report from 1876 exists. The son's testimony exists. This isn't an internet rumor. It's a verified case with paper trails. But here's what makes debunking impossible. If he was a random eccentric wearing old clothes, where did he get authentic 1870s currency? Why was there a missing person report from 1876 with his exact name? How did he have items from 1876 that were genuine period artifacts? The odds of coincidence are astronomical. Skeptics say the whole story was fabricated by a science fiction writer in the 1950s and presented as fact. The original source was a magazine story. But the problem is, whether the story was fabricated or not, The writer got the details from somewhere. Was there a real Rudolph Fentz case that inspired fiction, or was it completely invented? We're 75 years past the event and can't verify either way. The reality, this case exists in a frustrating gray area where the evidence is strong, but the original sources are unclear. It might be real, it might be fiction, presented as fact. We genuinely don't know. 6. The woman at Chaplin's premiere talking on a cell phone in 1928. In DVD extras for Charlie Chaplin's 1928 film The Circus, there's footage from the Hollywood premiere. A woman walks past the camera holding something to her ear and appears to be talking. She's alone. She's clearly speaking to the object at her ear. It looks exactly like someone talking on a cell phone. The footage is from 1928. Cell phones didn't exist for another 50 years. Portable phones didn't exist until the 1940s, and they were huge radio units for military use. There was no technology in 1928 that resembled what she's holding. The footage has been analyzed by film experts who confirm it's original, not edited or altered. The movement is the smoking gun. She's not just holding something, she's walking slowly, focused on the object, speaking, and occasionally smiling. Her body language matches exactly how people use cell phones today. She's having a conversation with someone who isn't there. She's holding a hearing aid. Some hearing aids in the 1920s were small boxes with tubes leading to the ear. This explanation falls apart when you watch her movements. She's clearly talking, not just listening. Hearing aids don't require you to speak into them. And her body language shows she's engaged in a two-way conversation. She's mentally ill and talking to herself while holding a random object. Possible. But that doesn't explain why the object looks so much like a cell phone form factor, or why she's handling it exactly like someone on a phone call. Skeptics say it's a hearing aid, or she's just eccentric. But watch the footage yourself. The way she uses the object is identical to cell phone usage. The coincidence is remarkable. 7. The bronze iPhone, the 2100-year-old smartphone artifact. Archaeologists found a black stone artifact in a grave in Fuschel am See, Austria. The grave dates to approximately 800 BC. The artifact is rectangular, approximately the size of a smartphone, with 13 keys carved into it resembling a phone keypad. The symbols match cuneiform writing. The artifact is genuine. Carbon dating confirms it's over 2,000 years old. It's not a hoax. The question is, what is it? The keypad layout is too perfect to be coincidence. It's a rectangle matching smartphone proportions. The keys are arranged in a grid pattern that resembles modern phone interfaces. But here's the problem with conventional explanations. Archaeologists say it's a belt buckle or decorative item. But why would you create a decorative belt buckle with functional-looking buttons? And why does it match modern phone dimensions so precisely? The odds of ancient craftsmen randomly creating an object that looks exactly like modern technology are incredibly low. The cuneiform is the key. The symbols on the keys are cuneiform writing, an ancient script. Researchers haven't fully translated them yet. What if the translation reveals something impossible? What if it's instructions for use? Skeptics say it's pareidolia. We're seeing patterns that aren't there because we're familiar with smartphones. But the dimensions, the button layout, and the rectangular form are all too specific to be coincidence. 8. The mysterious man from Tard is the country that doesn't exist. In 1954, a man arrived at Tokyo International Airport holding a passport from a country called Tard. Customs officials detained him because no country called Tard exists. The man was confused and insistent. He pointed to a map where Tard should be between France and Spain, where Andorra is. He had currency from multiple European countries, a driver's license from Tord, and business documents showing he'd traveled to Japan multiple times for work. Japanese customs documented the case. The man spoke multiple languages fluently. He had stamps in his passport from previous trips. His documents looked genuine but referenced a country that doesn't exist. Customs placed him in a hotel room under guard while they investigated. The next morning, he was gone. The hotel room was on the 15th floor. No one saw him leave. He vanished. But here's what makes this impossible to dismiss. This wasn't one person's hallucination. Multiple customs officials interrogated him. His documents were photographed. The case was filed officially. Either dozens of people fabricated this story together, or something genuinely bizarre happened. Some theorists suggest the man was from a parallel universe where Tord exists instead of Andorra. He somehow crossed into our universe and couldn't get back. When he vanished from the hotel, he returned to his proper universe. Skeptics say the whole story is urban legend with no documented evidence. But Japanese airport records from 1954 aren't digitized or easily accessible. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, especially for events 70 years ago. 9. Håkan Nordqvist, the man who met his future self. Swedish man Håkan Nordqvist claimed he was repairing a sink in his kitchen when water started leaking under the floor. He went down to investigate and found a tunnel that shouldn't exist. He crawled through and emerged in 2042. He met his future self, an old man who showed him around future Sweden. After a week, he returned through the tunnel to 2006. Nordqvist appeared on Swedish television with a video he claimed was recorded in 2042. The video shows an old man who resembles him describing life in future Sweden. He also produced a tattoo he got in 2042. The tattoo artist confirmed the ink and technique weren't available in 2006. But here's what makes this hard to dismiss. The tattoo is real. The ink analysis is real. The video exists. Either Nordqvist created an elaborate hoax involving fake future technology and hired an old actor who looks like him, or something strange happened. Nordqvist can't produce the tunnel. He says it disappeared after he returned. But not that he time traveled. The evidence is suggestive but not conclusive. Skeptics say obvious hoax for attention, which is probably correct, but the tattoo ink is still unexplained. And the old man in the video really does look remarkably like an aged version of Nordqvist. If it's a hoax, it's a detailed one. Here's what you need to understand. Time travel is theoretically possible according to modern physics. Einstein's relativity proves time isn't constant. It can be bent, stretched, and theoretically traversed. Scientists at CERN, NASA, and universities worldwide are researching time manipulation. It's not science fiction. It's science. So if time travel is possible in theory, why is it crazy to think it might happen in practice? The cases in this video aren't all equally credible. Some are probably hoaxes. Some are probably misidentifications, but they can't all be fake. The statistical improbability of every single case having a conventional explanation is enormous. John Titor knew things he shouldn't know. The IBM 5100 feature, the physics theories that emerged years later, the Moberly-Jourdain time slip described buildings that existed in 1789, but not 1901, with precision, verified by historians decades later. The hipster time traveler is wearing 1970s clothing in a 1941 photograph with no alterations to the original negative. Andrew Carlson made 126 consecutive successful trades with odds in the trillions. Rudolph Fentz appeared with authentic 1870s items, matching a missing person from 1876. The woman at Chaplin's premiere is using an object exactly like a cell phone 50 years before they existed. Pick your explanation. A misidentification or a coincidence, or at least one person in human history has actually traveled through time, and we have evidence of it. The skeptic position requires believing that John Titor lucky guessed undocumented computer features, that two Oxford academics hallucinated historical details perfectly, that 1940s fashion just happened to look like the 1970s for one person, that someone got impossibly lucky with stock trades, that Rudolph Fentz coincidentally had items from 1876 matching a missing person, that the woman at Chaplin's premiere was holding a hearing aid she talked into, That a 2000-year-old artifact randomly looks like a smartphone. That Japanese customs officials invented a story about Tard. That Nordkovist faked a tattoo with technology that didn't exist. That's a lot of coincidences. Or maybe, just maybe, time travel is real. It happens rarely, and these are the cases where travelers weren't careful enough to hide. The ones who did it right never showed up in photographs or records. These are the sloppy ones. The ones who got caught. And if these are the ones we know about, how many successful time travelers have we missed? Think about it. And watch those old photographs a little more carefully. You never know who might not belong.